imagine a future, not that distant future actually, but a little future where agentic AI becomes so advanced that it understands and predicts patient emotions and their needs much better than human practitioners. Interactive AI platforms provide comforting and insightful conversations, alleviating patients' anxieties and ensuring each individual feels heard and valued, really transforming healthcare into an empathetic and patient-centric realm. Alternatively, there's a different vision. A world where agentic AI replaces healthcare professionals entirely, making interactions purely transactional and mechanical. In this scenario, healthcare becomes cold and impersonal, with decisions driven solely by algorithms without any nuances of human intuition. Patients are treated as data points rather than individuals with unique stories and emotions, and trust and connection in healthcare systems is eroded. So before we get into the debate with Christian and with Wayne, I'd like to see where all you stand, and if we can have a quick poll. We can do the quick poll. I don't know if we're doing it virtually or hands up. We've got a Slido? Yeah. So are you for scenario one, the Agentic is going to humanize and make healthcare even more empathetic, or are you against? Please vote now. So we'll do a bit of a pulse check of where everyone is in the room, and then we'll run the debate and see where, if anything's changed as a result. Oh, so we're about 50-50 at the moment. Oh, no, split, changing minds. Okay, so a little bit of a split, more on the area of humanizing. I obviously drew a very compelling vision for the humanizing versus dehumanizing scenario. Before we get into the debate, we have intentionally, as a team, planned this to be thought-provoking, a little bit outside of reality, right? We understand we work in a regulated environment. There are going to be nuances and gray zones. But for the purpose of the debate and trying to paint extreme pictures, I have asked both Christian and Wayne to take a bit of a stance and think a bit outside of the box and more broadly. So I hope that incites you all to think a bit differently about what this all means for you in your current role, but also what, more importantly, you can take back to your organizations and maybe challenge as well on a different basis. So let's start with the first statement then. What if agentic AI is the only practical solution to revolutionize pharma engagement, making traditional human-driven methods obsolete between pharma and the healthcare professional? Christian, I'll start with you.
That's a good question. I think we all know the trends. You have all seen the Gartner hype cycle. And if I recall back what we have been seeing in the pandemic, we started to work only via Zoom remotely. And then obviously we said, well, we don't need face-to-face meetings anymore. We can do everything remote. So we're all here right now, right? We're building our human interactions. We're building conversations. We're growing our network. And similarly, we do so in pharma. We have seen channel dynamics changing, more digital. But then, in the end, it's a mix. It's a balance. And I think the human will still be in the middle of the interaction, which is the healthcare professional, which is augmented by technology. Obviously, we have seen in the pandemic. But we will see the same leveraging Gen AI and further technologies which are going to come over the next years. What do you think, Wayne?
That's a great point. I agree with you in principle about the capacity of AI and what it could do. I try to live in the world as it is, not as it could be. And I think AI is a perfect example of a wave of technology that's offering up a great vision of the future, right? And when I think about AI, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists within the systems and the culture of the companies that we currently have. And when I think about these companies, I think we have a significant mindset gap. We keep hearing that over and over again. We have a culture gap. And just the capacity to be human is often lost in our companies for the sake of efficiency. So I think AI has tremendous capacity. I think AI has tremendous potential, but I worry about our involvement in it and what we're going to do with it.
If I continue your argumentation around dehumanizing, and if we bring it back to the context of how we're making decisions, The question I was asking myself is whether doctors would trust fully on AI when they make decisions, specifically when it's around treatment choices or whether we speak about rare disease or new therapeutics which are being launched. And I myself went to a dermatologist yesterday. I did a pre-skin cancer screening, and I did it fully with AI. But in the end, I still went to the doctor because I'm not sure how this AI has been trained and whether there are the right decisions which are made by the model. So I'm not sure to which extent we're able to get this kind of trust by solely relying on AI.
Yeah, I concur with that. I think the issue that I go back to is like, what is AI learning from? If it's a learning system, if it's learning from us, then it's going to be a dehumanizing, interaction or approach. But where is it learning empathy or humanity or how to treat people with reverence? So I just wonder about that, and I'll kind of keep going back to that, where I think I'm not an AI sort of denier. I'm an AI advocate, but I think the systems that they exist within are problematic.
Yeah. So maybe let's take a different tack then. If you mentioned your skincare example, and that sounded to me like, what if there's more well-designed AI interactions that really do surpass that need to speak to a human, medical, or sales rep? What does that mean for them, really, in this new world of agentic and AI decision-making? And that the level of trust, in particular, and reliability is improved within that. What does that mean, then, if HCPs rely solely on AI for their decision-making? Maybe I'll start with Wayne this time.
Yeah, well, I hope it never comes to that, honestly. I think, I think AI as an augmentation paradigm rather than a replacement is probably the way to go. I think with augmentation, it addresses a specific problem with HCPs, which is the time constraint they have. How can it speed up the decision-making process, but not replace it with technology? So I believe that, again, not a denier, but I think it has to be integrated into a system of empathy that works, and doctors have empathy. Technology does not.
Okay. Christian?
I think if we look into other industries, which we tend to do a lot, to inspire our thinking on what does great look like, and specifically I'm talking about the financial industry, we see also where there are risks. As an example, in the US, there are a lot of loans which are actually granted through Gen AI. Interestingly, there was a study by the Chicago University and Stanford showing that many of those decisions are heavily biased based on the data which is being used. Not only that two different individuals would, with same income levels, would either get or not get the loan, depending on factors which have nothing to do with their wealth, but also that potential customers which are coming from low-income classes would not get access at all because those AI is not being trained. And if I now bring it to the context of precision medicines and diseases which are very rare, how will we ensure we have all the data available in order to train the model? And I think this is really where the rubber hits the road, where we need to have a certain human factor, ensuring that we make the right decisions, which can be AI augmented, but we need to rely on the information we also have in a pharma and in a healthcare context, because the AI might not be ready at a certain type when we actually launch the medicine in the market.
I love that example, actually, you've given around AI in a different industry altogether that excludes, although it's using a lot of data to make decisions, it's excluding societal groups or creating its own level of bias. I wonder, Wayne, what are your thoughts around that in the pharma context with all the evidence-driven information we tend to create as scientific organizations?
Yeah, it's great, and I want to just kind of address something that Christian just mentioned, and it kind of terrifies me a little bit. When that basic idea of training the model, it just terrifies me. Like, training it on what? And I think if in the gaps where there's nothing to fill those knowledge voids for AI, what fills those gaps? And where does that come from? Does that come from like the intuition of the technology? Where does it come from? So it makes me like, have a reaction to it. Not to you, Christian. I really like you a lot.
None taken.
But I think when I hear AI in pharma, it's accompanied by three terms often: governance, guardrails, and compliance. And to me, that is the language of the status quo. And I feel like we're going to take this technology, maybe just like we did with digital technology, and we're going to layer it on, or we're going to create a silo, an AI silo. And I think back to this silo is sort of the term of the day, which is our instinct in the corporate world is to create silos. Yeah. So are we going to create an AI silo that has to now coexist with the other silos and try to create a great experience or empathetic experience to customers? So I just worry about our limitations, not AI's limitations.
Yeah, interesting.
This is absurd, isn't it? It's absurd.
It's quite a good photo. I think you're right, and to build or take that to the next level then, in terms of, we tend to design and include technology within our own constraints as organizations and as pharmaceutical companies. And we all know also, having worked in, I think many folks from here in what we call mature developed markets, that the demographic of healthcare providers is changing significantly. So two things: they're all retiring, and younger folks are coming in who are digitally native already, using their own channels, their own chat GPTs, their own content creation. So where does that leave pharma in terms of content and evidence provider of choice, which many of us would like us to be, versus that change in demographic and change in behavior?
So let's imagine a state in which only the young generation of healthcare professionals are now operating, and I will pick the example of vaccines in the area and domain of respiratory syncytial virus, which we've just been launching in Germany, and just imagining that those pediatricians solely rely on AI on answering all the questions the young mothers, the pregnant mothers even have in terms of, is the vaccine going to be reimbursed? When do I have to come and do the vaccination? What happens in the U1 examinations, in the U2 examinations? What happens after the hospital birth when I will go to the office-based pediatrician? How is the immunization going to look like if I missed it in the hospital? And there are many different steps from a healthcare ecosystem perspective involving many parties, which actually an AI might not be able to know, because you might have to change certain laws, or you might face a situation in which you're having a dual pathway. You have a monoclonal antibody launched as a vaccine, and it's not always clear whether it's going to be reimbursed or not, whether you have an at-risk population or not. So those are things which will still require expertise in the field to guide healthcare professionals in the case of immunization through the right pathway from, in my case, the birth to the point of vaccination, and then ensuring that the patient is actually getting the prevention he or she needs.
Okay. Wayne, what are your thoughts on the value pharma can continue to provide in this context?
Yeah, so when I think about the digital native idea, and in pharma and HCPs in particular, like different generations of HCPs, I think that AI is almost going to make that distinction not relevant anymore. The interface for AI, the most advanced artificial intelligence out there, my mother is using. Yeah. It's a command line, natural language. She types it in, she gets an answer back. So I think that that's now the standard that must be set. But I don't think different generations of HCPs can interact with that command line or that prompt line differently or better. I think that AI has made almost like a leap in terms of the interface, how HCPs interact, the answers they get, and patients as well, the answers they can actually get. There's no complexity, there's no app to download, there's no scientific knowledge. They can just ask the question of the technology, and it delivers, or hopefully it will deliver. So I think the distinction of digital native versus non-digital natives may be going away quite a bit with AI.
Okay, all right. So looks like we've got time for one more, unless there are any hands up in the question. Anybody in the audience wants to join the debate and put a statement to the debaters? Yep, go ahead. Yeah. You might wait for the mic, please, so everyone can hear you.
I think going back to what Wayne said in the beginning, and the poll you just raised on the screen about humanizing or non-humanizing AI, yeah, I think a better question that we should be asking ourselves is the human factor when put into the equation, the modern equation, where AI can do so much without human supervision. Where does the risk lie? In humans being involved or in humans not being involved? Because right now, there are clinics operating in the UAE, in United Arab Emirates, that basically AI does everything. They take the file, they read the file, they make a diagnosis, they prescribe medication, and then the physician of the corresponding specialty just approves or not approves the final diagnosis. So it's here, right? So what we should be considering, I think, and that's a question to both of you, what is really the biggest risk here? Humans involved or humans not being involved, given the human history?
If I add on the point, I think it's something I was also looking at when I was preparing a bit the argumentation, is that it depends on the markets, obviously. And in the context of European Union, where we have the AI Act, AI in healthcare is seen as a high risk, meaning that within the European Union, even by law, human has to be involved in any kind of decision when it comes to, and you were describing it very nicely, making certain choices around the treatment, the prescription. And I think this is the balance we need to draw, and it may even look different when we look into different contexts and different regions, but at least from a European standpoint, and I know you can add some nice examples from the US, we do have certain interventions from a human perspective.
I think you bring up just a fundamental question, like maybe the question regarding AI. Is it sort of fire and forget, autopilot sort of thing, or where do humans interject, and is that a risk? And I just think that, look at history. So as I said earlier, I'm a classically trained CX person, so that means a lot of work in contact centers. And we all have interacted with IVRs, we've all interacted with chatbots. Those things are terrible, but they remove the human being out of it. And so I think that there's a model where the technology is put in front of us, it's used in a very functional way, but it doesn't necessarily deliver the value and the empathy that we need in healthcare. And I think the doctors and physicians there'll be a backlash, I believe, and docs will be more involved, and AI will help augment. Because again, I worry about what AI is learning from, and that to me is the risk area.
Yep. Another question from the front here. Could you wait for the mic so everyone can hear the question?
It feels like there's certain areas where there's lower risk, greater need for scale, where AI, even without human in the loop, may make sense, and other things at the other end of the spectrum where it really needs to be human-led, maybe with AI support. So to me, a lot of the hard questions about triage. How do we decide which modality we should be using? There's some where you would really want to get the scale from the AI, but others where it's going to feel like IVR and it'll be awful. And it's about getting people onto the right, getting issues onto the right path. So if I'm understanding your question, for me, I think it's like physician-led, AI-augmented interactions, and that human judgment is the missing link that AI will never have, in my view. Like human judgment and context, that's what physicians will bring to the party. And so I'm hopeful that that's the model we go with. Again, maybe some backlash, and I think AI for HCPs, their number one issue is time. So if AI could help make their time more efficient, perfect. But I don't think removing AI or moving physicians out of that equation is the answer. And it should be physician-led healthcare.
If I add on what you were saying, is that it's also the question around liability. So I was making an example on RSV prevention. So the question is, if you fully rely on an AI which is not properly trained or which is missing maybe some data points, and you're drawing the wrong conclusions, who's actually being liable for that? Is it a healthcare professional? Is it the AI? Or is it, I don't know, the provider who trained the AI? And it goes into an ethical dimension as well. So I'm echoing what you have been saying.
Great question, thank you. Oh, there's one more at the back. I think we've got time for one chap at the very back. Sorry, just bear with us while the microphone migrates all the way to the back from the front.
Workout.
Little step count high there today.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry for making. So I have a question, because we are talking about like general AI, right? So we need to build some system that will be recommending something. But what do you think about real digital twins of people? And I will give you an example. So in my work, I'm mostly building AI solutions for pharma and consumer healthcare companies. But my hobby is investment. And when doing investment, I need an advice. And I never get this advice from like OpenAI, Grok, whatever. I can do deep research, get some information, but then I need some advisor. And probably you know this guy, Ray Dalio, who built his digital twin. And Ray is the greatest mind in terms of investment. And I applied for like early beta testing of this platform. And when I need this advice, I want to ask Ray, like personally, probably like Buffett, someone else. In pharma and healthcare, I believe there can be an approach when we take minds of the great physicians and great doctors, we digitalize this, and then we can have a consilium of these great specialists and get real good advices for patients and for doctors. So 2 questions. What do you think of this, and who should be building these systems?
Great question. Who wants to start, Christian?
If we start from the trust perspective, and if we put ourselves into the shoes of the patient, I'm always asking myself, how do we ensure there is trust into the treatment choices and into basically what the healthcare professional in the end is recommending or not recommending. Whether we may use digital twins along the R&D cycle or in other areas of the pharma value chain, I think I will leave it open to that. But when we come back to the point of, do we humanize the interaction between pharma, HCP, or with the patient, I think we cannot just take out the human factor in the interaction, because a lot around our choices on whether I want to go for a treatment or not, which may sometimes be even irrational, will be human-led and human-based. Though there may be application examples in the R&D value chain.
All right, quick comment from Wayne.
Yeah, I don't have any particular experience with digital twins. I mean, fascinated by that whole development. But I, again, look at the world the way it is, not the way it could be. And I see like 2 vectors in that space. I see the EHR as sort of a data source for building digital twins. And I see sensors, wearables that are sources of data for that. So I think to the extent to which those 2 vectors develop and become trusted, I think digital twins will have a larger role in healthcare.
And I could certainly see from a personal point of view, with if you were to harvest all the HCP opinions or KOL opinions that were out there, made that accessible instead of a GP almost, actually, who I could interact with my wearable and get advice, and then actually go to the specialist only when I need the specialist, because many GPs, certainly in the UK, they're so time poor that actually they're not treating you as a whole human with your whole context. They're actually generally just treating the problem that's right in front of them. So I think there's power in looking at broader pieces, but who's responsible, who needs to deliver it, who owns that is a whole other question, probably for another debate. So we'll ask for everyone to re-vote again, and I hope you've enjoyed the debate. Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Wayne. Can we see if we've changed anyone's perspectives, or if we're still 50-50 on whether agentic AI will humanize or dehumanize HCP interactions? If you could vote one last time, please, and we'll see where we get to. Well, still fairly close, actually, from... Oh, no, it's shifting. Everyone's still voting. I'll give you another couple of seconds. Well, we split the room pretty much evenly on whether it's going to be humanizing or dehumanizing. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you again to Wayne and Christian, and speak to you all soon.